So in this video we are going to look into queues. Queue is a way of sending data from one task to another task, or it can also be sending data from an interrupt service routine to a specific task. Now think of queue as a first in first out buffer where one task is filling in the buffer with some data and another task is reading data out from the buffer. And another thing about queue you need to know is it makes sense to have a queue sending data to one specific task but sent by multiple different senders. So many different tasks are sending data to one specific receiver. I mean, that makes sense, but multiple receiver, I mean, it's not a very good way of using queue. I mean, there's no practical applications for that. So in whenever you're using queue, make sure that you have only one receiver, and number of sender, I mean, it really doesn't matter. So I will go ahead and I will show one example where I'm sending data from one task to another task using a queue. So in FreeRTOS, if you want to use queue, the first thing you need to do is include the library, the header file for queue. So you do that by using include queue.h. And the next thing is you need to create the queue object itself, and you do that by using the data type queueHandle_t. So queueHandle_t. I guess the queue is capital here, and I'm going to call it xq. Now when you want to send the data over the queue, you need to decide what kind of data you want to send. Now, you can send integers, you can send floating points, you can send a structure of your own. So it doesn't matter what kind of data you want to send, but when you're creating the queue, you need to determine the size of the queue. So in my example, I want to send an array of characters. So basically I'm going to send some string. So let me create the buffer here, I mean the array here. So character, I'll call it my tx buffer, and I'll give it a size of 30. I'm going to have a similar array in my task 2, and I'm going to call it my rx buffer. So my item is going to have a size of 30 characters. So when I'm creating the queue, now I create the queue in this way. So I have my queue object xq equals to xq create. Now there are two parameters. The first parameter is going to be the length of the queue, which means that each of my item is going to be 30 bytes or 30 characters. So how many of these items do I want to store in this queue or in this buffer, this first in first out buffer? So I can have 5 of them, or I can have 10 of them. So this is going to be my first parameter. In my example, I will keep it as 5. And the second parameter is going to be the size of your item. So what is the size of my item? So the size of my item is 30 characters or 30 bytes. So I can just write 30, or I can also write in this way, size of my tx buffer. So I have one item that has a size of 30, and in my queue I can store 5 of such items. So that's it, I've created my queue. Now I will send some data over the queue. So let's go ahead and let's write something into the buffer, and I will write something as my message 1. So I'm going to do a printf to send some data to this array, and then I'm going to send this data over the queue by using the function called xqsend. So xqsend. Now the first parameter is going to be the queue through which I want to send, which is going to be the xq. The second parameter is going to be the pointer to the data. So I have to do a void cast, and this is going to be my data that I want to send. And the third parameter is going to be the blocking time. So for how long it is going to be blocked, and keep on trying sending the data if in case it fails. So I will keep that at 0 for now. and I will send like maybe I'll send the same data 3 times, but the first time it will be message 1, then message 2, and the third time it's going to be message 3. So if you notice that the size of my queue is 5, but I have sent 3 data, I can still send 2 more. But I will come back to that, that again later on, but let's just skip to the simple example. So I'm sending 3 messages or 3 data over the queue, and on the receiving side I need to check first. So in my infinite loop I will constantly keep checking if I have data inside my queue, and you do that by using if xq. So this is my queue that I want to check. If xq is not equal to 0, means that if it is not equal to 0, it means that there is something in the queue to be read. So the next thing is I need to use a function to read the data out of the queue, and I do that by using xq receive. The first parameter is going to be the queue object. The second parameter is going to be where I want to store the data. So in my case it's going to be my RX buffer, and the third parameter is going to be the blocking time, similar to how we have seen in xq send. And my blocking time I'm going to keep it as 5 ticks. Okay, so every time I receive a data, the data gets stored into my RX buffer, and the next thing is I need to print the data. So print mod s new line my RX buffer, and when I'm using this xq receive, it actually returns a value of pass or fail. So it will return me 0 or 1. So 1 means it's successful reading some data, and 0 means it's failed. So it's better that we just put that inside an if and else statement. So if this value is 1, means that data read successfully, means data read successfully, only then I want to print the data. So this is a better way of doing it. So let me do a recap. I have included my queue.h file that I've created my the queue object. In the sender task I have created my data, the actual buffer or whatever. I could even keep it as an integer, doesn't matter, and creating the actual queue, which is done by determining the length of the queue buffer and also the size of each item inside the queue that I want to send, and how I can send the data using the function xqsend. And the receiving side, how I'm checking if a queue is empty or not, and then receiving it and also printing it, of course. So let's see, let's try to run this program and see how it is on the terminal. Okay, so I'm going to press the reset button. So there you can see it prints message 1, message 2, and message 3. So this is done by task 2, where it is printing each of these messages that are sent by task 1. So this is how you are using a queue. It's the simple way of using queue. In the next video I will show you some other functions and features of queues.